I wanted us to go over a few things regarding the CPT code book in this podcast. I've tried different ways to do this, and there isn't a good way that I can show you both pages at the same time and show you the entire page. So we're just going to see what I can do here, and I'll do the best I can. On the inside cover, this is the outside cover, the inside cover, you see here all these modifiers, and we will be talking about these a lot, especially these and these a lot this semester. And here's the symbols for interpreting what they mean. And these are also reproduced at the bottom of the pages in CPT, in case you forget. The anesthesia physical status is here. That's only applying to the anesthesia codes. But these modifiers, depending on which one you choose, some are applicable for physician and some are applicable for hospitals, what would be assigned and how it would be assigned. The place of service codes here, this is just for when you are filing a claim for payment, you have to say where the treatment or the procedure took place. And so this is the code book that people that are entering that information are getting it from this page. And then if we move forward, table of contents is just what it is in any book. It's a good overview of everything that's covered, but I do have to suggest that perhaps you're looking for something specifically and you can't find it. I do recommend that you would just go to that part of the table of contents maybe and see if you can find it, depending on what you're looking for. The majority of the codes that we will talk about are in the surgery section. They're all the different body systems. If you look over here, right here, this is the surgery section and all the different body systems that are included. And then all the different appendices are here. The main one you're going to use is Appendix A, which is right up here. It talks about the modifiers. That's the main one that you'll be using. And then when we get to E&M codes, evaluation and management codes, you might be looking at Appendix C because there's a lot of clinical examples there. Then if we come into the introduction section here and read through that, and the main thing I want you to notice about this under format of terminology is how to read these code descriptions. Let me see if I can blow this up so it's a little bit, let me see if I can blow it up and make it a little bit bigger. Oops. And what I want to show you is you have the code and then you have a description and then there'll be a semicolon. And then the codes that follow, you pick up on all the words that were present before the semicolon and then you jump down to this one. So in other words, in 25105, it would read arthrotomy, wrist joint with synovectomy. 25100 reads arthrotomy, wrist joint with biopsy. And that semicolon is what you're looking for whenever you're seeing these codes. Many times you will have several codes going down the page, but they all share that common beginning point. So you're looking for that semicolon. So let's find a couple in the code book and see if I can show you some examples of that. It's very common, so it shouldn't be hard to find. So if we look here, let me see if I can blow it up a little bit more. Okay. Under 49491, we read this as repair, initial inguinal hernia, preterm infant, younger than 37 weeks gestation at birth, performed from birth, up to 50 weeks post-conception age, with or without hydrocelectomy. And then you see a semicolon right there. And the next modifying term is reducible. So then when you were looking, I'm not sure what this is. I don't know what that is. And if we look at 49492, you're going to go back up here and you're going to read exactly the same until you get to the semicolon. And then instead of saying reducible, you would say incarcerated or strangulated. And while we're looking, a couple of things I want to bring to your attention. There are publications that AMA puts out. CPT Changes is one, CPT Assistant is one. And we look at these for guidelines or guidance. And if you remember from your HIT 22221, we talked about Coding Clinic. Coding Clinic is specific to ICD codes. CPT Assistant is specific to CPT codes. So we would be looking at those two things as a reference to see where this came from. I also want to show you there's instructional notes in CPT just as there is in the ICD. And this particular one says do not report modifier 63 in conjunction with these two codes. And let's say you think, well, what's modifier 63? Well, if we go to the front of the book, let's look under here. In 63, procedures performed on infants less than 4 kilograms. So that's how you might read a little bit in here and make those decisions. And if we kept going down, there's an explanation here for what post-conception age means. It defines it. The hard thing I think about CPT, to me at least, is that it's a lot of reading. And it's so easy to not read it in its entirety in a given passage and kind of rush it. And you can bet if you rush it, you're going to miss something. So at least in the very beginning stages when you're learning to use the code book, take your time, really take your time, and read it carefully. Okay, let me see if I can show you another one. I've got it blown up 3 times. It looks like it's fairly well. It's just hard to do that. Okay, here's one under 65130, insertion of an ocular implant secondary after evisceration in a scleral shell. It looks like the semicolon is right here. Insertion of ocular implant secondary, semicolon, after evisceration in scleral shell. And this code would be read insertion of ocular implant secondary after enucleation, muscles not attached to implant. And 65140 would say insertion of ocular implant secondary after enucleation, muscles attached to implant. So you see the very minor differences, but they're so important. A lot of times you see the words not, that little word not in 135 is the only distinction between 65135 and 65140. So it's so important that you do that. And the other thing I wanted to say about the code book is the index. I wanted to talk about that for a bit. I think sometimes students get frustrated because they want me or someone to tell them exactly how to find something and not to be chasing their tail. Well, unfortunately, that's not how it works. The main terms, when you're looking those up, a main term can be either the procedure you're looking up, like an endoscopy, the organ that's affected. The examples given there is tibia, not just the organs, anatomic sites that are affected. Tibia, colon, salivary gland. The condition, like an abscess, or a synonym, EEG, an eponym, which is someone's name given to a procedure, or an abbreviation. So you really, if you don't find it under one type of main term, you're going to look under another. And that trial and error is how you'll find it. Now, as you have more years coding and get some experience, you will more rapidly know where to look that up. But when you first start coding, it's just very time consuming. And that's why I think Students are always surprised at how long it takes to do homework, but that's why, because it isn't black and white. You really have to try different things until you find what you're looking for. Many times in the index you'll find a code range, like it'll give you, when more than one code applies to a given index entry, you get a code range. So really all you can do is go back to the code book itself and start with that first number in the range and just start reading them until you find the description that matches exactly what you're looking for. The only other word of warning I would say, I guess, about the index is to really watch your indentation levels, because it follows like the bypass, the resection, then you get to device, and these words come under device. So placement of the device, removal of the device, replacement of the device, revision of the device. So those all go together, and then you see port component along the same lines as the device. So just really watching your indentations. Also similar to when I taught diagnosis coding, if you don't know a procedure or a body part that's named, using your Google search engine to look those up is very helpful. Let's see, this word right here, Barden-Huer, B-A-R-D-E-N. Let's see if I can figure out how to spell that. B-A-R, Barden-Huer. And I type in Barden-Huer operation. Put a colon, and look at this. It tells us it's an operation for the ligation of innominate artery. So if you go to that website, you can read and get more information about that. Another thing you could do, let me see if I can copy this. In addition to looking there with your Google search engine, is to go to YouTube. And if you're going to be a serious coder, you are going to get very acquainted with YouTube. There are so many things you can watch and learn or hear a lecture about here. So when I look up this here in YouTube, I see an anatomy review course, innominate artery bleed controlled, arterial ligation. Then there's some videos there for artery and surgery. So you see all the different things. I mean, there is literally anything you want to look at. That's all. If you have any questions, let me know. If you're serious about coding, you're going to be doing this kind of extra work to learn as much as you can about procedures, because even if you're working in the field, new things are being developed all the time. So it's important that you stay on top of it. If you have any questions or you find any interesting articles when you're on the internet, please put a link in the discussion board so we can all go look at it. Thank you so much, and please make a point of watching the podcast that I am creating for each chapter. I'll be going over some of the problems that are in the book, as well as talking about the types of questions that might be on exams. So it really does behoove you to take the time to spend watching those podcasts with me. I try to make them no longer than 15 minutes so that you can really get a concise idea of what's in the chapter and what's important. But nothing replaces the time that it's going to take you to use your code book finding codes. That's just how you learn to code. I did some research on the internet to see if I could find out how other people were teaching students the use of the code book. And I found some interesting things that I thought made sense. I didn't learn to code this way, but I don't think it's a bad idea. So what I'm going to try to do while I'm recording these podcasts is talk to you about the different things I've read. And if you find something rings true when you hear it, then definitely incorporate that as your way of learning to use the code book. The thing I learned about most recently was using annotation in specific ways to identify the format of the CPT code book as you go through it, so that you can more easily read the codes. I thought it made sense. So we're going to look at a few of those and see. So let's go to the document camera. And I've chosen to show you what I learned under the shaving of epidermal or dermal lesions. Now what I was told was that you should circle a family. And a family is when you have a common core description, all the language up to, right there, up to your semicolon. So you circle that family. In this case, it would be this family. If there had been any parenthetical notes down here, you would include that in your circle. And then you take a highlighter. I'm using pink, but you could use whatever. And you highlight the words after the semicolon. In this case, it would be lesion diameter. And then here's the other words after the semicolon. Then the next thing it advises you to do is to underline unique words that you should notice, and I think in this case it would be single, so I'm going to underline that, and I'm going to underline epidermal or dermal. Now hopefully when I go to select code, it's going to really stand out to me which one I should use. Let's do it again with this one. Shaving of epidermal or dermal lesion, single lesion, scalp, neck, hands, feet, genitalia, lesion diameter. So there's your lesion diameter again after your semicolon. Here, 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 and here. What is unique about these, this one is trunk, arms, or legs. This one is scalp, neck, hands, feet, genitalia. Right? And the next family talks about something different. So let's circle this one. They all go together. Now this one is talking about the shaving, face, ears, eyelids, nose, lips, mucous membrane. And then after the semicolon, lesion diameter. So that's one way that I've seen, and I think it makes sense. And I especially like it because it groups the codes together. Oops, I forgot to circle this one. This is a separate family. So I'm going to try to do that as I move through my code book this time. But I'm going to show you some things today. You're going to see where I had made some notes before I decided to try and use this annotation technique. But you get the idea, I think.